Good morning. We are continuing our study on sticks and stones. Kind of winding down here. This will be, there are, 4 more weeks counting today because we have 5 Sundays in the month of May. So we are, pick up where we left off. Well, I did it again. I forgot to save. Sorry. I thought I just forgot to change the date, Brian. Apparently I forgot to save it too. Let me get through these. I'm going through these because we've already covered them if you weren't here 2 weeks ago. If you see something you say, boy, I wish he'd slow down on that, just ask me later. I'll give you the slides. But we covered all this, and I thought I saved it on my computer. This is where this was the last slide we covered. I'm going to go ahead and pull it up because we did cover it. But we were talking about appearances can be deceiving. We've talked a lot about gossip and being the victim of gossip, slander, not necessarily just gossip. It could even be in the form of slander. May even be that something is true, and you know, down here at the bottom, a broken clock is right twice a day. Even when a talebearer gets all the facts right, if it's gossip, if it's talebearing, then that's what it is. And the Bible still says, you're not to be participating in gossip or talebearing. Appearances are deceiving. A gossiping person may appear to be sincere. They may appear to be honest, confiding only in you, doing you a favor, concerned about the victim, all these different things. But appearances are deceiving, and we need to stay away from that kind of behavior and realize that appearances are deceiving. And we talked about some examples where people have even been convicted, sometimes even on eyewitness testimony. That, in fact, I don't know how far back DNA goes as far as the science of DNA, but this has done so much for criminal investigations and things like that, because so many people were convicted on eyewitness testimony only to have it overturned later by conclusive DNA evidence. And, sometimes it could be just someone who's deceitful, they're lying under oath. Sometimes it's just that appearances can be deceiving. And so as we mentioned, it's no wonder that under the law of Moses, you had to have 2 or 3 witnesses in order to enforce the death penalty. And even New Testament passages, Paul says, the third time I'm coming to you, and every word's going to be established in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses. That's nothing to do with the death penalty. That's just common sense. Paul took care when it came to matters of money, when it came to matters of his reputation and things, and he said, we're going to make sure that there are witnesses to establish this, because sometimes people tend to distort things, and appearances can be deceiving. 1 Timothy 5:19, he says, you don't even receive an accusation against an elder except before 2 or 3 witnesses. So, kind of a common sense thing there as well. This is where we left off last week at this slide, talking about foolish talk. The more we talk, the more likely we are to say something hurtful, something wrong, or something that is just plain foolish. People say foolish things, dumb things sometimes. And that's probably why James says, what does James 1:19 say? Let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, and slow to wrath. And so the old expression, we have 2 ears, 1 mouth. So that ought to tell us something. I wrote down a verse that I don't have on the slide. Let's turn to Titus 2. Let me check it. I'm looking. I wrote it down, and I'm feeling like I wrote down the wrong reference. I hope I didn't. No, okay, I got it. Someone read for us, please, Titus 2:8. All right, sound speech. We understand what that means. We talk about health being sound. You know, someone is healthy, they're in sound health. We talk about sound doctrine, something that is true to the Word of God. Now, here he's talking about sound speech. And that's another one of those verses that just drives home the importance of taking inventory and giving an account for the words that we speak and the words we use. One reason for that is that once reckless words escape, they cannot be recaptured. Once it's gone, it's out there. You know the old illustration, the feather pillow, you rip open. In fact, I heard that told in the context of gossip. There was someone who was a notorious gossip, and so someone, to teach that person a lesson, said, I want you to go and rip open this feather pillow, and it was, there was some breeze blowing, and the feathers are just going everywhere. And he said, now I want you to go and gather every single feather and get it back inside the pillow. And the person said, that's impossible. You can't do it. And the illustration was that's what gossip is like. Once it goes out there, you could go and you can correct some of it. And we understand this even in everyday life. The newspaper, they get a hot, juicy story, and what do? It goes on the front page, right? And then they find out, oh, you know what? That actually wasn't that guy. And what do? They print a retraction in a little bitty box on page like 13B or something. You can't get it back. And so once reckless words escape, they cannot be recaptured. That's not to say you can't be forgiven for it, but to understand there are consequences that go on beyond that. Even if we are forgiven, even if I may go to a friend who I've slandered. A friendship's been damaged, and I may say, I'm sorry, I was wrong. I shouldn't have done that. I made a mistake. I really apologize. And the friend may say, well, I forgive you. But it doesn't change the fact that the words are out there and they may continue to do damage. God does want us to talk. He wants us to talk about Jesus. And isn't it ironic that, our problem is that we're often talking about everybody except the one we're commanded to talk about. I mean, you think about that. How often do we discuss people in the sense of other people instead of discussing the person, the man Christ Jesus? That's who God wants us to talk about. He wants us to go and tell others about Jesus. But too often we're telling others about others. And we need to make sure that's another one of those where we want to take account and say, okay, how much time do I spend talking about other people? How much do I spend talking about the Lord? How much time do I spend listening about other people and what's going on with them, whether it be celebrities or just everyday people? How much time versus how much time do I spend listening to words about God, whether it be reading from His Word, might be reading an article or listening to a sermon or whatever. This comes from the book. He mentions instead of throwing stones, we need to be proclaiming the chief cornerstone. I thought that was pretty neat. And then this one also, he says, instead of putting down our fellow man, let's lift up the Son of Man. That's certainly what we need to be doing. People are often throwing stones, slandering others, hurting others with their words. We ought to be focused on the chief cornerstone. Too many times we're trying to put others down. We ought to be lifting up Jesus. And isn't it true? If we spent more time lifting up Jesus, don't you think we'd spend less time putting down others? I don't think there's any question about that. A lot of talk can lead to a lot of problems. We've read Ecclesiastes 5:3 before. Let me get somebody to go grab that. But let's all turn over to Proverbs 10. Who wants to grab that Ecclesiastes 5 verse? Brother Gary? All right, a fool's voice is known by many words. It is a fact that a lot of talk can lead to a lot of problems, and we have to be careful about that. There are people who are, you don't need me to tell you this, but there are people who are more talkative. There are people who are the quiet type, and if you're a more talkative person, you got to be careful because sometimes you talk so much, you talk yourself right into trouble. Some of y'all may have a problem with that. There are others of us that don't. I'm teasing because I'm a talkative person, and so you have to watch that because a lot of talk often leads to a lot of problems. And so we have to watch out for that. Proverbs 10:19. Who's got it?
In the multitude of words, your wanted not sin, but he that refraineth his lips is wise.
He that refraineth his lips is wise. In other words, he that knows when to keep his mouth shut. And so sometimes that's a difficult thing to do, but it's worth it, because the first part of that verse says, in the multitude of words, there wanteth or lacketh not sin. So remember, a lot of talk can lead to a lot of problems. He gave some illustrations in the book about how people can say really foolish and dumb things, and there's a humorous side of this. Sometimes things are said foolishly, intentionally, sometimes not. Maybe you've seen some of these bulletin errors where they say, don't let worry kill you, let the church help. I saw one, remember in prayer those who are sick of the church. Sometimes we say that, don't we? I know what we mean, but every time I hear that, ever since I've seen this bulletin blooper, every time I hear someone say that, I kind of have to smile a little bit, because, you want to, I guess if you're sick of the church, you need a lot of prayer. There's something to that. I saw one that just a small little typo, but it said welcome. It was a birth announcement. It said welcome, and it gave the child's name. It said the sin of our preacher and his wife. It was supposed to be son. That's a big difference there. There was a criminal. He gave this example in the book. A criminal who was attempting to defend himself. They say the man who defends himself, what? Has a fool for a lawyer. He was attempting to defend himself, and he got up to cross-examine or whatever the lady who was testifying against him, and he says, did you get a good look at my face when I took your purse? Yes or no? And he realized what he said, and the man was convicted. Ephesians 5:4 talks about, it uses the term, it's talking about things that need to be put away from Christians. One of them is foolish talking. We need to put away foolish talking. We're not talking, some bloopers and silly things. We're talking about just words that are foolish. They're no good. And we understand this. Hopefully you're still in the book of Proverbs. Let's go to Proverbs 12. Somebody read 12:23, please.
Prudent man conceals knowledge, but the heart of fools proclaims foolishness.
All right, so a prudent man, a wise man, conceals knowledge. He doesn't have to just blab all the time. I always tell people, I've discovered that it's not true necessarily in every area, but a lot of areas, the people who talk the most about what they know sometimes know the least. And I think I've mentioned before about my friend in preaching school who blabbed about all he knew about computers, and I was having an issue with the computer, and I can fix that for you. And next thing I know, the next 2 or 3 days pass, and I still don't have it back. And I just in conversation said to somebody, Arlo, that was the guy's name, I said, Arlo's got my computer, and he says he can fix it. It's been 2 or 3 days, and they said, you gave your computer to Arlo? Are you nuts? You might as well go buy a new one. And so it turns out he didn't know all he claimed to know. And so that's the idea here, is that sometimes the ones that talk the most about how much they know, they're not necessarily as wise as they make out. But the heart of fools proclaims foolishness. Proverbs 13:16.
Righteousness keepeth him that is upright in the way, but wickedness overthroweth the sinner.
Wait, where is that?
I'm in Proverbs 13:6.
16.
There you go. Not awake this morning. Every prudent man dealeth with wisdom, but a fool lieth open his folly.
All right, a prudent man deals with wisdom or with knowledge, but the fool just lays open his folly. Some of these verses remind me of a saying that my dad would sometimes say, and my dad could sometimes be quite blunt with me, not to say that I didn't need it, but he would say sometimes it's better to keep your mouth shut and to be thought a fool than to open it and remove all doubt, right? And sometimes these verses remind me of that. Sometimes he would tell me that. He'd say, you know what, because As I said, I sometimes have a tendency to talk too much, and especially as a child, my dad would say, sometimes just be quiet. Better to be thought a fool than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. Man, if I had a nickel for every time I heard that. Proverbs 15, verse 2.
The tongue of the wise uses knowledge rightly, but the mouth of fools pours forth foolishness.
All right, the tongue of the wise uses knowledge rightly, but the mouth of fools is just pouring out foolishness. If you got a fool, then guess how he's going to talk? Foolishly. That's not rocket science. A few things he mentions in the book, sometimes what people say dumb things. Sometimes people come to you and they'll say, you didn't hear this from me. Well, where did I hear it? Sometimes people say, well, I'd tell him to his face. Well, go do so. Don't repeat this. Well, if you can repeat it, why can't I? And this is, I've mentioned this before. Sometimes that's the solution. If somebody comes to you and they say, now, I need to tell you something, but I don't want you to repeat it. And sometimes I'll say to people, oh, you don't want to tell me then, because I tell everybody. And so sometimes that'll get somebody, that'll keep them from telling you something like that. I don't want this to get around. Oh, well, I'm the wrong person to tell then. Sometimes people say, I hate to be the one to tell you this. Then don't. There's a simple solution, I've just got to share this with someone. Well, share it with God. Sometimes people will say, forgive me for saying this. Well, hush, and I don't have to. If you don't say it, nobody has to forgive you for it. What I'm about to say is probably gossip. You ever hear people say that? Well, what I'm about to say, it's probably gossip, and then they continue to tell you. Well, what other sins do you so nonchalantly commit? Do we go up to somebody and say, I got a gun in my hand and say, what I'm about to commit is probably murder, but, we don't do that. We wouldn't walk up to somebody in the church building and say, well, what I'm about to do is probably drunkenness, but here we go. It's just amazing. This is one of the things that has been eye-opening to me in this study, is that to realize how much we give a pass to sins committed with words. And we need to be careful about that. Let's talk about a better way to talk. Words that are pleasant. Proverbs 16:24. Don't leave Proverbs. We'll have a few references that are out of Proverbs. We'll come back periodically, of course. There's so much in Proverbs about speech. In fact, I've done a verse-by-verse study of Proverbs before as far as teaching it in a class. But I've said that the next time I teach the book of Proverbs, I think I want to go by and do it subject by subject, because it almost lends itself to a better study to go by subject. You cover them all still if you go verse by verse, but looking at it by subject, I think, would be beneficial as well. Proverbs 16:24, who's got that?
Pleasant words are like a honeycomb, sweetness to the soul and health to the bones.
All right, so words that are pleasant. The pleasant words, they're like a honeycomb, sweet to the soul, healthy to the bones. What about words that build up? Romans 14, verse 19. I had that on the list somewhere, and I was going to read it to save everybody from leaving Proverbs, having to come back. But oh, there it is. Somebody got it, though? Go ahead.
Therefore let us pursue the things which make for peace, and the things by which one may edify another.
Okay, edify just means build up. Pursue peace and pursue things that build up one another. True or false, our words can build up. Absolutely. True or false, our words can just as easily tear down. Absolutely. Yeah, you just think about people you've known. Maybe a teacher. Maybe a Bible class teacher. Maybe it could be a preacher. It could be an elder in the church. People that you've known, it may go way back, into your childhood. You may be on up in years, but you can remember somebody, and they stick out in your mind. Why? Because they encouraged you. They built you up. Maybe it was something you're having a difficult time with, and you say, you can do it. I have faith in you. You can do this. I have recollection of those, and I also have recollection of a teacher. Bob and I were talking about this one time because, I'm always teasing Bob's such a math genius, and I'm so not. And I was talking about this. I was in 10th or 11th grade. My schedule had gotten messed up somehow in high school. And I had a teacher, she's a sweet lady, but this moment just sticks out in my mind. My schedule somehow got mixed up, and I got put in the wrong class one year. So I took this basic math class one year, and then I go the next year, and I'm supposed to be in trigonometry. Well, again, I'm not a math person, but even I know trigonometry is based off, I know it now, it's based off geometry. I had not had geometry. My schedule got mixed up, and when everybody else was taking geometry, I'm taking this basic math class. And so one day, she's got me at the board, and I'm working this problem on a chalkboard, and some of the young folks probably don't even know what that is now, but I'm at the chalkboard, and I'm working this problem, and so I get stuck. And she says, all the angles in a triangle add up to what? And I said, you got me. What? And she goes, all the angles in a triangle add up to what? This is basic geometry, Dollahite. And I said, well, I haven't had geometry. And you know what she says? Well, I don't have time to teach you now. Sit down. And she tells the next person to get up there. And they did the problem. Of course, they come up there, and they got it and worked through it. And I went home that night, and it was one of the kind of one of those breakthrough moments because I studied myself through it, and I finally figured it out. But I'll never forget that. I was embarrassed. I mean, it was, you talk about words, the very opposite of words that build up. I don't have time to teach you. Sit down. And everybody's like, what's wrong with this guy? He doesn't even know what the angles in a triangle add up to. I still don't know, by the way. What is it, somebody? 180. I was going to say that. Yes. Tim, you were going to say something.
Just for clarification, very quickly, you mentioned words that build up, words can also tear down. You used that as an example. However, earlier, you used where your dad had used words that tore down, and then our military are notorious for, with the Marines and others in boot camp, you tear a person down to where then you can build them up in the way that they should come up versus the carnage that they have and trying to work with that.
Yeah. And that's a good point. Sometimes you tear down something that is there, it's in the way. There's a structure that needs to come down before, we see this all the time in construction projects. Boot camp is a good illustration as well. And so sometimes you tear down in the interest of, and those words, I guess in a sense they're tearing down, but they're tearing down to build up. And so that's a good point because parents sometimes have a way of doing that. And sometimes as a child, in the moment we think, my dad is a jerk. Sometimes my dad would say that to me, and I think, you're rude. That's not nice. But what he was saying is he was trying to teach me a very important lesson. It's right there in the good book over and over again. Just think before you speak. Watch what you say. Don't just open your mouth without thinking. And so that's a very good point. So words that are pleasant, words that build up, words that comfort. 1 Thessalonians 4:18, I'll grab these two because I got them right here on my sheet. Wherefore, comfort one another with these words, talking about words that are comforting. Comfort yourselves together, 1 Thessalonians 5:11, and edify one another, even as also you do. So again, words that build up, words that comfort, words that bless the hearer. Ephesians 4:29, where he says, let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to the use of edifying, that it may minister grace unto the hearers. Parallel passage there in Colossians 4:6. Let your speech be always with grace, seasoned with salt, that you may know how you ought to answer every man. Words that bless the hearer. And again, let us not be naive and ignorant of the truth on this, because Tim makes a very good point there. Sometimes words that bless the hearer are not the words you want to hear at that moment. I got some lectures from my parents once or twice when I did something wrong. Maybe you get to the age where it's not so much spankings as it is groundings. And to me, I used to joke that my parents had a much better punishment than spanking or grounding. They sat me down and talked to me for like an hour and a half, and it was like the longest talk ever. And you feel about this big, and you just want to scream before it's over. But, those were words I didn't want to hear. If you'd asked me at the time, are those words that bless the hearer, I'd have said no. But now I understand they were good. Those are things that you need to hear. So sometimes words that bless are not necessarily what you want to hear in that particular moment. Ephesians 4:25 are talking about words that are true. I got a typo there. I left a word out. Words that are true. Ephesians 4:25, he talks about putting away lying, speak every man truth with his neighbor. Who's over in Proverbs? Get Proverbs 12:22. All right, so we need to, when we talk about a better way to talk, we need to use words, speak words that are true. You know, how much better off would our lives be if we just eliminated lies? Think about all the lies that are around. But the Bible still says lying lips are an abomination to the Lord. God does not mince words when it comes to his thoughts on lying. The article in the bulletin this week that, wait a minute, my days are running together. I think it's actually for this week coming up. But I ran across an article about how to bring your children up godly. And one of the things is teach them that lying is one of the worst things you can do and punish them severely when they do. We need people to understand, and we live in such a dishonest society. We need them to understand. I tell my children all the time, if you do something wrong, it wasn't terribly long ago that we had some family over. One of the cousins come up. You know, cousins get together, and they kind of, it's all fun and games till somebody does something wrong, and then you run and tell the other's parents. But one of them comes running up and says, Joshua did such and such. And so, okay. So we call Joshua over there. Why did you do that? I didn't do that. No. So you're saying she just lied? I guess so. Okay. You better tell me the truth. No, I didn't do it. And so, we've learned we can ask the different mamas and dads, okay, who's the honest kid in your family, Okay, you can ask her. She'll tell you the truth. So we called her over there. Yeah, he said that. All right. And so, we sat him down. We said, look, it wasn't even a big deal. I mean, it was something that we'd have said, don't say that again. That's not nice. That's not right. Stop. And that's the end of it. But you sat there and looked me in the eye and lied. Now you got a problem. And so that's a serious thing. And we live in a society that acts like lying is just no big deal. Let's speak words that are wise, words that are kind. Proverbs 31:26, talking about the worthy woman there. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and in her tongue is the law of kindness. Don't we need people that speak words of wisdom and words of kindness? And that gets back to what we were just talking about a few moments ago. Sometimes, even when we need to speak words that may not be what the hearer wants to hear at that particular moment, and they're going to tear down in the interest of building up what is righteous, but we can still, even in that situation, we can speak those words in a kind way. And isn't it amazing how some folks have a knack? They can speak words that tear down in the interest of building up for what is good, but they speak it in such a way that it's so kind, and you go, okay. I've known a few people like that. Even when they critique, they did it in such a kind way, it just seemed like, okay, I can listen to this better, and I can make the changes that need to be made. Let's speak words that are gentle. Proverbs 15:1. You know the verse, what? A soft answer turns away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger. Even when we have to speak rebuking words, be gentle. And then, of course, there's this little acronym, think before you speak. You've probably seen this before. We have this in our house. Hopefully it's going to stick one of these days with all of us. We all need to hear this. But before you speak, think. T, is it truthful? You think about some of these verses we just covered. Lying lips are an abomination. Speak truth. Every man with his neighbor, Ephesians 4:25. So ask yourself, is it truthful? Ask yourself, is it helpful? Is this something that builds up, or is it just about tearing somebody down? There's nothing good going to come from this. What is the purpose for my speaking this? Ask yourself, is it inspiring? Is it something that's going to, and that goes right with helpful, going to build others up and inspire them to be a better person? Is it necessary? Just think about all the things we say that, I had a couple of instances just this morning with children. We're fussing over Mother's Day gifts, who's going to give mom the gift? I'm like, I just stopped at one point. I said, do you really have to fuss over who's going to whose hand it's going to be in when it goes to mom? They finally agree we're going to hold it together and present it to her. I'm going to hold one side of the box and you hold the other. And start saying ugly things to each other. And I just stopped at one point and I said, is this necessary? How often do we stop and ask ourselves, we're dealing with children. We kind of expect that. That's part of growing up and training and learning. But with adults, think about how many times adults speak. And have you ever just stopped and asked yourself? I've actually found myself I mean, if I'm honest, I've found myself saying it to my own self, but even to others. I've just, on one occasion, somebody said something, and I just came out and said, is that really necessary? It may be a situation where somebody swore or they used the Lord's name in vain. And I just say, is that necessary? It's not. Or maybe a Christian brother or sister just said something ugly. And I just say, is that necessary? Before you speak, ask yourself that. Ask yourself, is it kind? I may have to get on to somebody. I may have to rebuke somebody. But I can do it in a kind way, can I not? All of us can. I think that's excellent stuff right there. Before you speak, think. That's a better way to talk. Continuing this thought about a better way to talk, a better way of talking means to stop complaining, whining, griping. Philippians 2:14, does anybody know what the verse says? Do all things without murmuring or complaining. I remember when I was in preaching school, a buddy of mine printed that out and put it on his desk. I didn't like looking at that every day when I was giving those assignments because sometimes you're tempted to whine, gripe, and complain. But that is a better way of talking, isn't it? I mean, again, here's an everyday life illustration. Think about your job, your workplace. There's somebody, no doubt, that they come in and every day it's gripe, complain, murmur. Oh, we got to do this. We've got to do that. And then, a lot of you probably have somebody there that they're cheerful. They don't complain. Now, tell me which one of those ought the Christian to be? Sometimes the child of God is the one who comes in, oh, we got to do this. They want us to do that. And we complain and we gripe. But a better way of talking means not to do that. I saw a story one time with this monk, and he went to live in this, what do you call it, where the monks go to live? Monastery, thank you. But they said, every monk here for 2 years takes a vow of silence, and you're permitted 2 words in that year. So 12 months passes, and they come to him and they say, brother, you can speak your 2 words now. He had saved them up all year, and so the guy says, food, bad. So, okay, that was his 2 words. So 12 years pass, or 12 months. He saves up his words again. So they say, okay, you're at the end of your time, 2 words. And he says, bed hard. So the next time passes, and they say, well, you've made it. You passed your time of silence. Now you can speak. What do you think? And he says, well, I don't think I'm cut out for this. I think I'm just going to leave. And the guy says, well, that's probably just as well. All you've done is complain since you got here. But that's some people. I mean, if their mouth is open, they're complaining, right? Think about how many folks we know. And sometimes, God forbid, but sometimes those folks are members of the Lord's church. And if there's a decision made, I've sat in business meetings. I've sat in, like a men's business meeting. I've sat in business meetings like in the secular business world. And you bring up an idea. And it's just somebody's there's that person. I don't want to be that person. May it never be said of one of God's children, they are that person. Unfortunately, sometimes it is the case. But a better way of talking means getting away from griping, complaining, and so on all the time. Now, that doesn't mean there's not a constructive criticism here and there or encouragement. Maybe this might be better. But I think we all, this is one, it's not rocket science. We know the kind of talk we're talking about here. Go ahead, Tim.
It's fascinating that God preserved the Bible for us. You look at 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 10. God is leading the children of Israel. It is God that's making all the decisions of where they're going, what they're eating, what they're drinking, what they're doing, and what are they doing? They're murmuring and complaining. And God says, I've had enough of it. I'm going to destroy you and destroy you. But if we ever digest, it is God that is in control, and the people are absolutely disingenuous and just fed up with God. What have you brought us up? Now they're saying it through Moses, but Moses is not leading them.
Yeah. And You know, that's a good point there, because if you ever want to know how God feels about complaining and murmuring and griping nonstop, go to the book of Numbers. And I mean, it is as clear as day. God does not put up with that. You know, again, we mentioned this, all some ever do, have done, and seemingly will ever do is complain. And again, think about that. What a miserable way to live. I have never known a complainer that I'd say, you know, that guy is so fun to be around. He's cheerful. I can't wait to see him. I can't wait to see this person. If it's a complainer, you don't want to be around them. That's a miserable way to live. But think about the people you've known who have a cheery disposition, and they say, well, you know, I'm not thrilled about this, but hey, he's the boss. He says this is what we're going to do. Well, let's do it. Let's do our best. You know, sometimes you may even have a cheerful guy that says, you know, I don't really see the point in this right now, but maybe he knows something we don't. Let's just do our best to see what happens here. Let's make the best out of a bad situation. Something like that. That's a person you want to be around, right? What a miserable way to live, just complaining all the time. Can you imagine those Israelites in the wilderness? How miserable that must have been. Just complaining all the time. I love what he says in the book. He says, we can choose to gripe because roses have thorns, or we can be glad that thorns have roses. Your attitude is your decision. Better thinking leads to better speaking, of course. Paul talks about things that are honest, things that are just, things that are lovely, things that are of good report, and so on. Think on these things. We'll speak better when we think better. Complaining, murmuring, that's a heart problem. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. Jesus says in Matthew 12:34. Matthew 15:18, he talks about the things that come from the mouth, they come out of the heart. In other words, what you speak from your mouth originates in your heart, and not the blood-pumping organ, but the heart in the sense of your mind, your soul. A heart that's filled with love for God and his people is going to be a heart that has no room for wretched thoughts, which eventually will become wretched words. When it comes to a better way of talking, we got to get rid of all the complaining and murmuring. I want to get through this, a better way to talk before we run out of time. Many folks are addicted to gossip. How can you know? Well, here's just by no means exhaustive, but a few things to ask yourself. Do you negatively talk about others as a way to avoid dealing with your own issues? Do you surround yourself with people who enjoy discussing others? Do you pull away from those who are unwilling to gossip? You want to be around those who will listen to it or engage in it. Do you frequently talk about people who are not present? Do you get a thrill whenever you tell or hear a secret? Do you feel down when you aren't downing others? Are you obsessed with the personal lives of others? Do you often feel guilty about conversations? Do people come to you to get or to give the latest scoop? If any of these things are true, you might need to do some self-examination. Gossip can be an addicting thing. And I tell you what, this checklist, all of us, myself included, you think about that and you think, okay, I need to be careful about some of these things. As far as breaking the gossip habit, how can we break the habit? If you say, clearly I've got a problem with this, that's something I need to work on. How can I break the habit? Well, you got to admit you have a problem, first of all. You got to get busy doing good. 1 Timothy 5:13, Paul's talking about those who are idle. They're wandering about from house to house, and not only idle, but tattlers also, and busybodies. Get busy, not in other people's lives, but get busy doing good. Replace words that bash with words that bless. Make a conscious effort. I'm going to use words that bless others. Avoid danger zones. There are certain people, if you know that person loves to gossip and they're not going to make the same decision as you, that I'm going to get out of that gossip business, then you know what? You're going to have to stay away from them. A man decides, you know what, I'm through with this alcohol habit, that's sinful, and I'm staying away from that, and I'm going to get away from it. Guess what? There's some people you're going to have to quit hanging around. You can't be hanging out at the bar if that's going to be your decision, right? So there's some people and places you're going to have to avoid. Get a support system of good people who are going to hold you accountable, and be willing to say, find a friend who's a good enough friend that'll say, stop. Remember we talked about this, and we're going to stop this. We don't even need to talk about this person because that'd be gossip. God give us friends like that. Focus on the benefits of better talking. You're going to be less less feelings of guilt, better friends. You're going to have more friends. You're going to have an improved reputation. And, of course, ultimately, heaven will be your home. Daily read the Bible about words. Things like Proverbs 10:13. The lips of him that has understanding, wisdom is found. The tongue of the just is as choice silver. The heart of the wicked is little worth. 13:3. He that keepeth his mouth keepeth his life, but he that openeth wide his lips shall have destruction. 15:4 says, a wholesome tongue is a tree of life, but perverseness therein is a breach in the spirit. 21:23. Whoso keeps his mouth and his tongue keeps his soul from troubles. 25:11 says, a word fitly spoken is like apples of gold and pictures of silver. And then finally, let your daily prayer be Psalm 19:14. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord. Pray that every day, and God will help you kick the gossip habit. A better way to talk begins with a better way to think. Next week, Lord willing, we'll talk about a better way to listen. And then, of course, we're going to go into a better way to resolve conflict. Thank you very much. We'll have a break before worship.